Chosen ones, this message may be difficult for you to believe, not because it isn't true, but because of what it demands from you once you hear it. Some truths don't arrive gently. They confront, they disrupt, they shatter old identities, and this is one of them. You've always felt different, even when you tried to blend in. You questioned yourself, doubted your instincts, wondered why life felt heavier for you than for others. But what if that weight wasn't meant to crush you? What if it was meant to prepare you? You weren't overlooked. You weren't forgotten. You were hidden in plain sight, protected from knowledge that would have broken you too early. That's why this message is arriving now, because something within you has finally matured enough to carry it. This is not motivation. This is recognition. Not everyone will understand it. Not everyone is meant to hear it. But if this resonates deeply, if something inside you stirs uncomfortably, it's because this message has been waiting for you longer than you realize. Listen carefully. 1. You weren't supposed to believe this yet, and that's not a flaw in you, it's evidence of timing. Some truths don't come to be accepted, they come to wait. They hover at the edge of your awareness, whispering without demanding agreement, because belief too early can be just as dangerous as ignorance. Had you known this before now, you might have misunderstood it, misused it, or been crushed by the responsibility it carries. What you're hearing today was not withheld as punishment. It was concealed as protection. There were seasons when your heart was still forming, your discernment still sharpening, your courage still incomplete. Truth given prematurely doesn't empower, it overwhelms. So life gave you fragments instead of the full picture, intuition instead of explanation, tension instead of answers. Now notice this. The fact that you're even questioning this message means you've grown. You are no longer the person who needed shielding. Your mind has stretched, your spirit has survived pressure, and your silence has taught you more than noise ever could. This truth isn't arriving to convince you, it's arriving to recognize you. Belief will come later. For now, awareness is enough, and awareness is the first sign that the veil was never removed too early. Only exactly on time. 1. Your confusion was never a mistake. It was the initiation. Chosen ones are not handed clear maps or simple instructions. They are dropped into uncertainty, surrounded by unanswered questions, forced to navigate without guarantees. While others were given structure, you were given disruption. While others were told who to be, you were made to discover it the hard way. Confusion became your classroom. It taught you how to listen inward when external voices failed you. It stripped away blind trust in appearances and trained your spirit to read between the lines. When nothing made sense, you learned discernment. When comfort disappeared, you learned truth. Chaos was not meant to break you. It was meant to sharpen you. If clarity had come first, you might have followed it blindly. But confusion forced you to pause, to question, to develop spiritual intelligence instead of dependency. You learned how to sit with discomfort without losing yourself. You learned how to move without validation. You learned how to choose alignment over ease. That is why your understanding runs deeper than most. You didn't inherit wisdom, you earned it. Your calling required a mind that could function in uncertainty and a heart that could remain steady without reassurance. What once felt like disorientation was actually training. And now, when clarity finally arrives, you won't mistake noise for truth, because confusion taught you how to see. Scene rule 1. Your life didn't resist you by accident. It responded to you with intention. The obstacles, delays, and constant pushback were not signs that you were on the wrong path. They were signs that something within you required refinement. Resistance wasn't sent to stop you, but to measure you. Every challenge tested how much pressure you could endure without losing your integrity, your empathy, or your sense of self. What felt like punishment was actually calibration. Like a finely tuned instrument, you were adjusted through tension. Too little pressure, and you would have remained fragile. Too much, and you would have shattered. So life applied just enough force to strengthen your spine, sharpen your judgment, and deepen your resilience. You were not being broken. You were being fortified. This resistance taught you independence of thought. It made you question authority, examine motives, and refuse to be easily swayed. You learned how to stand firm when approval was withheld, and how to move forward when doors stayed shut. Control failed over you because you learned to survive without permission. Now understand this. What you can endure without hardening your heart is your true strength. The pressure shaped you into someone who bends but does not bow, who feels deeply yet cannot be owned. That resistance was not your enemy, it was your training ground. 1. You outgrew people long before you had the language to explain it. One day the conversations felt thinner, the laughter quieter, the connection strained by an invisible distance. You didn't leave in anger, and they didn't always leave in cruelty. It simply stopped fitting. That confusion hurt because endings without reasons feel like rejection. But what you experienced wasn't loss, it was release. The sudden distance, the unexplained loneliness, the silent separations were not failures in loyalty or love. They were quiet extractions. You were being removed from environments that could no longer hold the version of you that was emerging. Staying would have required shrinking, silencing parts of yourself, pretending growth hadn't happened. So life intervened gently, sometimes painfully, but always deliberately. Not everyone is meant to walk with you through every season. Some people are assigned to introduce you to yourself, not to remain with you forever. When their purpose is complete, the connection dissolves, not as punishment, but as protection. You didn't become distant because you were superior. You became distant because you were becoming. Loneliness followed because transformation often isolates before it aligns. But what felt like abandonment was actually alignment in progress. You weren't being left behind, you were being led forward. And one day you'll recognize those silent separations as the moments your life made room for who you were truly meant to become. 1. You were attacked for what you carry, not who you were. Long before you understood your purpose, something else recognized it. That's why resistance showed up early, before you had confidence, before clarity, before language for your depth. The opposition wasn't personal, it was perceptive. It sensed what you would become and tried to interrupt it before you did. This is why the attacks felt disproportionate. You were criticized for your silence, misunderstood for your insight, targeted for simply existing. People reacted to you in ways that didn't match the moment because they were responding to an unseen weight you carried. Potential has a presence. Purpose has a frequency. And not everything that senses it welcomes it. But here's the truth. Early opposition is confirmation, not condemnation. If there was nothing valuable within you, nothing would have bothered to rise against you. The pressure came early to test your endurance, to see if you would abandon yourself before your assignment revealed itself. What tried to break you failed, because it underestimated the resilience being formed in you. Each attack refined your awareness, strengthened your boundaries, and sharpened your discernment. You survived not because the opposition was weak, but because what you carry is stronger. And now that you are beginning to recognize it too, the very thing that once targeted you will no longer be able to reach you the same way. 1. Your delays were not detours, they were deliverance. What felt like denial, like being overlooked or held back while others moved ahead, was actually divine interruption. You were being spared from destinies that looked right on the surface, but were too small for the person you were becoming. Timing, in your life, was never accidental. Had certain doors opened when you begged for them to, you would have walked into versions of yourself that required compromise. You would have settled for approval instead of alignment, familiarity instead of growth. The delay protected you from environments that would have capped your expansion and identities that would have cost you your authenticity. Waiting reshaped your vision. It stripped urgency from your decisions and replaced it with discernment. In the stillness, you learned patience, not as passivity, but as preparation. You matured emotionally, spiritually, and mentally in ways you could not have if everything had arrived on schedule. What you called lost time was actually time invested in becoming uncontainable. By the time the right doors appear, you will not enter them desperate. You will enter them ready. And when movement finally happens, it will feel sudden to others, but intentional to you. The delay did not deny you your destiny. It redirected you toward the one that could fully hold who you are. 1. Believing this changes everything, and that is exactly why it's hard. The moment you accept that you were chosen, the comfort of confusion disappears. You can no longer blame circumstances, people, or timing for staying small. Excuses lose their power because awareness demands action, and action requires courage most people are not prepared to summon. Belief carries weight. It asks you to live intentionally, to align your choices with truth rather than convenience. Once you know who you are, drifting is no longer an option. You become accountable for your growth, your healing, and the way you show up in the world. That responsibility can feel heavy, even isolating, because it separates you from those who are still sleeping comfortably in uncertainty. This is why resistance rises within you when the truth draws close. It's not disbelief. It's fear of transformation. Accepting your calling means releasing old identities, old habits, and sometimes old relationships that cannot follow you forward. It means standing exposed, without the shelter of, "I didn't know." Not everyone is ready for that weight. But readiness is not about strength. It's about willingness. When you finally accept this truth, you won't feel powerful immediately. You'll feel awake. And awakening is uncomfortable before it becomes liberating. Yet once you step into it, there is no return. Only responsibility, purpose, and a life lived on assignment. Here's the part few chosen ones are prepared for. Awareness changes everything. Once you see yourself clearly, you can no longer live unconsciously. You can't shrink to make others comfortable. You can't pretend you don't feel the pull anymore. This is why the truth was delayed. Because knowing you are chosen comes with responsibility. It means choosing integrity over approval, purpose over popularity, growth over familiarity. You were never meant to live an ordinary life on borrowed beliefs. You were meant to disrupt patterns, heal cycles, and carry light into places that resist it. And yes, it will be lonely at times. But loneliness is not abandonment when it's part of assignment. If this message unsettled you, that's confirmation. Awakening doesn't feel safe, it feels necessary. Stand up, align yourself, walk forward. You are not late, you are not lost, you are right on time.